Brian Woodlake, you're absolutely right. Well done. She got it. Brian Woodlake, will you come through the keyhole? Well, they got there and they loved the house. They loved that house, as you heard.
I think Lloyd was very polite about it.
Oh, he's very polite. He's very well bred, that Lloyd. I'm not sure where his accent comes from. I don't think any of us will ever know that. But of the three versions, I mean, obviously you enjoy all three, but I mean, when Nina was saying about the written page and television and radio and so on, which do you put first on a passport?
I put broadcaster.
Broadcast, that comes first.
Yeah, and then, write or anything like that. We'll do after the fraud,
Yeah. Because the World at One, and Nick was mentioning just then, and that was a real landmark. How many years overall were you on that?
I think I did about 8 or 9. And on the money program, I think I did an astonishing figure of 18.
18?
Yeah, 18.
18?
Yeah.
What was your favourite scoop, favourite interview scoop?
What, on the money program?
Yeah.
I think probably when I challenged a man called Jerry Hoffman in the studio live, who was American, who ran a company which was called the Real Estate Fund of America. And it was obviously a big scam, and I accused him on that program in the politest way possible that maybe he was a bit flaky. And he took against it. And the moment we came off, he went to the phone of the hospitality, rang his lawyer in New York, told him what had happened, and he said, sue the guys. And followed, of course, by many lawyers' meetings. And we never went to court because they put Hoffman inside before it could come to trial.
Oh, very gratifying.
It was quite fun.
Now, what about all this, the fraud? Lloyd said, and we were talking about fraud, and Lloyd saw the plan of the next subject of fraud. Yeah. I mean, you've written on fraud, and are you still investigating fraud?
Yeah, the paperback of my hardback, which is called The Serious Fraud Of, is a very sexy title, isn't it? That was an analysis of how that institution works, which wasn't very polite. And I'm now doing a fraud film for my old show, The Money Program, which is about a hotel fraud. But I wouldn't like to think that the whole of my life is involved with fraud.
You're not gonna keep on investigating.
Brian, in the film, Lloyd said that you looked as though you might have an exotic background. Do you have an exotic background?
No, I don't have an exotic background. I mean, he pointed to the elephants, I think. Well, my wife was born in India, and I was born on the Fiji Islands.
But did you leave Fiji before you were influenced by it, or what?
Absolutely. I left it when I was 6, yeah. I can remember just bits of it, sort of impinged on the very childish memories that I had. They were all exotic and rather pleasant.
And did you ever wish that you were actually a financier as opposed to a writer about?
Yes, every time.
Do you?
Yes, I wish devoutly now that at the age of 23 or 24 I become a merchant banker. And
Why?
I'd have had, well, I really would have had lots of houses around the world of choice.
You probably wouldn't have had as much fun, though, would you?
Yeah, well,
you never have interviewed Reagan. You saw the picture there in the house of Ronald Reagan talking to
someone.
Someone.
Yeah.
Chopped off
yeah.
there. That was
a one-off,
85.
actually. We spent the whole of the world about 40 minutes talking about Star Wars and terrorism and God knows what else. A charming guy. That was before he rode into the sunset, as he said.
Yes, exactly. 85, so that would have been soon after his second term began.
That's right.
Well, you approved of the house. Yeah?
Oh, yes. Oh, it's got such a wonderful atmosphere. You feel you'd love to move in and just live there. It's the nicest compliment to pay.
In that case, you better not give him the address. Anyway, here we have the Through the Keyhole key, which is our way of saying, Brian, thanks a million.
Thank you very much indeed,
Thanks
David.
very, very much indeed for being with us. We appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, Brian Woodlake. Our thanks to Brian Woodlake, and of course our thanks to Sir Clive Sinclair, not to mention Nick Owen, not to mention Nina, and the other Nick, Nicholas Parton. Until the next time, goodbye for now.
Coming up at 5:30 on BBC Two, Today's the Day. That's after Esther with Jill Dando. Next.
Mr. Wainthropp's worried. He told me to ride shotgun.
A string of violent thefts.
Nice to see you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. Hello and welcome to Through the Keyhole, the show that declares curtain up on the homes of the famous. As always, we've borrowed the keys to two fascinating homes, belonging to two well-known personalities, and with Lloyd Grossman's help, we'll be taking a privileged peep behind closed doors. But the question is, whose? Well, to try and answer that question, we have our panel. And what price? A panelist's paradise. Because that's what we've got here, a Garden of Eden, blossoming with brilliance and sprouting with splendor. The secret, as always, is in the mulch. Our first guest is the man who's got more women going in the morning than Warren Beatty. The man who put the X in exercise, Mr. Motivator. Of all the columnists I have ever known, our next panelist is certainly one of them. Educated in South Africa, fortunately for us, she never became a bore. From OK Magazine, Ms. Nina Mishkov. The bushel under which no lights are hidden. Mr. Gary Bushel.
Thank you.
Well, let me tell a bit about the show with the help of this key here. We'll be taking a careful look inside two fascinating homes, which should tell us something, maybe quite a bit, about the person or persons that live there. All our friends here have got to do is to work out who that is. So let's join Lloyd himself, the blessed Lloyd, at house number 1. And watch closely, because remember, the clues are there as we go through the keyhole.
Well, you might think that this is quite a modest hall for such a grand house. Well, that's because we've come through the private entrance. It is decorated with all the expected impediment of stately homes there. Look at this. There's a rather wonderful rocking ship grandfather clock. And there's nice hall chairs which have got painted crests on the back. But as one looks around this room, you can see that there's an undercurrent of eccentricity. How, for example, do you explain a ceiling light in the form of a German Zeppelin? And what about this? I'm puzzled. How can someone afford to live in such a grand house, yet they can't buy their own clothes? Look at this. Jackets donated by automobile and tire companies. This is a big, handsome drawing room, and the walls are positively paved with wonderful 18th century family portraits. They're sort of the aristocratic equivalent of those little plastic leatherette albums that you have full of holiday snapshots. Now, this room has been decorated with conventional good taste and an artistic eye. Just look at that arrangement of Chinese objects underneath another painting, for example. It's really, really pretty. But you can see here, as we saw in the hall, that there are touches of eccentricity. For example, this family of painted toadstools. They could belong to a New Age traveler. And wherever you look, there are frolicking bears. Well, this is the sort of door that people are always popping in and out of in murder mysteries, and it's been disguised to look like a bookcase with shelves full of fake books. Now, traditionally, fake books on doors like this have jocular titles. And of course, so do these. We have The Owl's Almanac, The Hospital of Incurable Fools, Mason's New Art of Lying, and so on. It's a rather jolly touch, because this is a very, very serious study here, actually. Massive bookcases, all very neatly arranged, ancient-looking leather-bound volumes, all rather serious and scholarly. But that serious scholarship is slightly deflated by this huge collection of miniature cars all over these bookshelves, and they're very unusual. There's an American Thunderbird sports car, and even more bizarrely, a 1948 Tucker, the car that never really succeeded. Now, I think this library is very much used as a serious office because there's a very powerful-looking desk over there. These are very dainty bedroom chairs, very pretty too. Maybe the people who live here are rather small. They're certainly very fit because there's some serious exercise equipment in this bedroom. There's a rowing machine and this wonderful exercise bicycle. Now, I think these people have quite traditional taste. Look at these turn-of-the-century watercolors, for example. So I'm rather surprised to see a tribute to the king tucked away in a corner here. I guess after an hour or so of hard pedaling, there's nothing like flopping on that big, splendidly architectural bed, which is the size of most people's houses. And it's got its own color-coordinated teddies. Let's look at the evidence. The free clothes, the stylish transport, the family pics. Who lives in a house like this? David, it's over to you.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Lloyd. And now for our home and studio audience, but not for our panel. Here's whose house it is. Derek, it's over to you.
Ooh, beautiful house, beautiful film. Hey, some serious production went into that. I felt it's a man, number one.
Yes, a couple live there, but it's a man we're looking for.
Yeah, I also felt it, for some reason, a racing driver. But
not quite, but it's an interesting thought. An interesting and provocative thought. Nina.
It's a wonderful house. I mean, that's a seriously posh house, isn't it? Really grand. I mean, you'd have to be on your P's and Q's if you were invited there. Is it a house that's been inherited rather than bought? So somebody's been brought up to be accustomed to that sort of grandeur.
Very good. Gary.
Yeah, well, it's all starting to come into place now because you've got the panelling, you've got that wonderful exterior, the aristocratic background. I think it's the west wing of Crinkley Bottom, isn't it? I'm puzzled at the moment, I must say. Aristocrat we're looking at, that sort of... With a taste for driving.
But also someone who has been sponsored by the looks of it as well. There's definitely sponsored.
Sponsorship.
Yeah,
Sponsorship in somewhere fits into this.
It's somebody who has something to do with cars.
There is a link.
As a hobby.
There is a. You're right.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Cars as a hobby.
Yes, and a bit more than a hobby. Yeah.
A manufacturer?
No.
Not a manufacturer of cars.
No,
I don't think so, no.
Is it somebody who has a museum of cars?
She has struck gold. Speak on, young woman.
Bewley? No.
Bewley. Bewley it is. Lord Montague of Bewley come through the keyhole. Well, they worked it out very well. And what we see there is how old?
Part 13th century, past Victorian.
Part 13th century, part 13th. It is superb. And you were very good with the motoring museum, Nina. It was inspired, you see.
Well, yes, but I loved your Zeppelin light and the Thunderbird model. I mean, have you ever owned a Thunderbird?
There's one in the museum, yes.
Is there? And why did and the light, the Zeppelin light?
Yeah, I got that some years ago. It's a wonderful Art Nouveau, I think World War I probably, and it's got lights inside, and I thought it was rather wonderful, so I bought it.
And And how old were you when you inherited beauty?
2.5.
And you immediately made changes, I imagine.
Yeah.
Of nappies, if nothing else. But no, but that's amazing, 2.5. And you were the youngest person, weren't you, to be invited to King George VI's coronation?
Yes, I was the youngest peer in my own right. I was 10.
You were 10.
Well, I've been to 2 coronations in my life, one in 1937 and one in 1953.
But now, and of course, it is an official museum, isn't it?
Yes, it's the National Motor Museum now, and it's been going since 1952. I would have been very ashamed if they couldn't have guessed it, after all my publicity and promotion. If you couldn't guess it, there's something wrong with me.
And how many cars are there in the Motor Museum?
We have 300 exhibits. That's cars, motorcycles, racing cars, land speed record cars, and so on. Trucks, fire engines.
And how old is the oldest car?
1895, 100 years old now.
Really? What was that?
It was a Knight. It was a sort of one-off car, but the actually oldest British car manufacturer is Daimler of 1896.
And did you just love cars from an early age?
No, really, I started the museum in 1952 in memory of my father, who was a great pioneer motorist. And up to then, I was no more interested in any other boy, but I got really sort of caught by the bug of collecting and fascinated with the motoring history, and it all started from then.
And obviously, keeping it up, I mean, keeping up a building like that, obviously, is very expensive too.
That's the original reason why we all opened our houses up after the war, was really to keep them. We're very grateful to the public coming and helping us do it.
Well, it's a joy to have you with us.
Thank you,
it
David.
really is, and to see that lovely home of yours, and Godspeed.
Thank you.
Great to have you with us.
Does this go into a car or not?
No, only a very old car. I think it works on an 1896 Daimler.
Oh, good.
It's particularly good on that. Thanks ever so much. Our thanks to Edward Montague. Who's next?
I like this vintage house. It's so sort of big and sturdy. These are 2 very nice 19th century watercolors. They give this hallway a rather sort of cozy, homely feel. It's almost like a vicarage, actually. Well, maybe not quite like a vicarage. I think that whoever lives here expects lots of people to be coming and going. Look at this big hotel-sized coat and hat rack, for example. Like the hall, this drawing room is big, spacious, and handsome. It's a nice room to be in. It's a great room for entertaining people, maybe to tea, lots of big, battered bits of furniture. It's all very, very comfortable. Now, the mantel is decorated with lots of knickknacks. They're sort of the nymphs and shepherds school of frolicking in the country. There are people playing musical instruments and prancing around with garlands of flowers, like this little ballerina. It's all very jolly and nice. Now, whoever lives here, I guess, is a cat lover. We have 2 stuffed cats. There might even be some real ones wandering around. And they seem to like riding as well. Look at this thing. It's very fancy, isn't it? Alas, filing doesn't seem to be a strong point. Look, there are all these boxes full of press cutting. Maybe someone's running a little PR agency from home. Now, from the sitting room, you come into this sort of lean-to type conservatory, which appears to be set up for a bit of a party. Look at this bar. It looks great. There's a very strong interest in politics in this household there. And notice of poll and statement of persons nominated for a parliamentary election in 1988. So political matters are very important here. And I can see from the signs on the fridge that someone not only has a sense of humor, but maybe has a little struggle with weight. Well, it's a very neat and cheerful little kitchen. So I guess that in spite of the motto hanging up behind me, enough housework gets done for things to be rather sparkling and proper. Now I can tell that whoever lives here has a fondness for men in uniforms, whether they be policemen or pilots. There's a bit of a sort of airplane's instrument panel. They also seem to subsist largely on fry-ups. I've never seen such a huge collection of frying pans. Whoever lives here likes shoes, and they're all shoes of a particular type. They're sort of party shoes, dressing up shoes. So this house belongs to someone who likes having a good time. Now this bedroom is very traditional, and it's loaded with all sorts of imagery about good old-fashioned romance. There's a wonderful sort of doll of a 1920s or 30s type film star lounging on a Trader Vic's type chair. And then there are these Gainsborough-style prints of romantic heroines. So there are lots of rather lovey-dovey ideas in this household. Now let's look at the evidence. The love of the limelight, the passion for politics, the men in uniform. Who lives in a house like this? David, it's over to you.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Lloyd. And now for our home and studio audience, here's whose house it is. Gary.
So I've got it down as a drunken MP who likes, he's very partial to the old crack of the riding crop. So that narrows it down to about 300, isn't it? Yeah. Oh, are we getting applause there for? Is it for the MP? No, so it's either, it's a woman, I think.
All right,
So,
well,
yeah.
Nina,
Well, the sort
what
of
did you
place-
make of the house?
Well, I love the booze in the conservatory. I mean, the sort of place I'm sure I've been there for a part. I mean, I haven't, but it's the sort of place you can. The sort of place you feel you've been there, and I love it.
That must be quite mystifying to you, Nina.
It is
but,
very mystifying to me. And I love it because it's wonderfully messy compared with a lot of houses where everybody's tidied up for, months beforehand. But everybody seems to know something that I don't know.
Derek.
Well, I felt the one clue there I'm afraid of is the whip, because I think that maybe is a real clue.
You mean a chief whip, or what?
Well,
do you mean?
well, I actually think she's pretty good with it. And her name may be quite synonymous with the whip.
No, I think I've got a problem here because I think I know where it is, but if I say, I don't want people to think I have been round it because I haven't.
Now I know. I do know now.
And now you realise...
I understand exactly right, and I've never been there, I promise you.
Are we all with luncheon vouchers?
Well, yes, we are. We're talking...
That's all right, well, you're all...
We're talking Cynthia Payne.
That's right.
Yes. So will you come through the keyhole then, Cynthia Payne? Hi there, welcome. Lovely to see you. Oh, thank you very much.
You should have known.
Here we are.
You knew.
Being a journalist, you should have known.
A luncheon voucher, I'm sure that was intended for you. You were onto it very quickly there, weren't you? But Nina loved the house.
Yeah, I'm glad you said it looked more like a home. It wasn't all nice and clean and tidy. You're dead right there.
Cynthia, did you ever do sort of discounts for group bookings?
No, I didn't have to do group bookings. They all came back.
You said once you spent your 30s doing it.
30s doing it, my 40s organising it, and in my 60s, unfortunately, I'm only going to talk about it.
Much safer, much safer. But I mean, you've had 2 movies about your life, haven't you?
Yes, 2 books. And now I've just brought out a video documentary of my life. They've actually filmed the documentary all inside my house.
But I mean, have well-known customers appeared to pay you testimonials, or what?
Well, we managed to get real people to come into the house. We did a reconstruction party at the end of the video because most of my girls are grandmothers now, you see. So we had to employ young actresses to take their parts. But we actually got real people to talk, men that used to come over 20 years. Oh, no, they came for real. A lot of the girls naturally didn't want to go on video because naturally they didn't want to be seen. But I managed to get 2 girls to come and talk. and I managed to get about 6 men that came to the parties.
Now, the other thing that we need to explain is that the by-election in 1988 was when you actually stood for Parliament, and you outpolled the monster raving loony party, didn't you?
Well, yes, that was my first by-election, the Kensington by-election, and I wanted to get our sex laws changed because, as you know, they're 200 years old, and it's about time England, you know, changed these archaic sex laws. So I thought, well, I decided to go in for this election to get it talked about, because I think there's a lot of unhappy people out there, and I think it's about time that England, you know, got up to date a bit.
But how many votes did you get in the by-election?
I think I got about 199, and I think Screaming Lord Sutch got 100, which rather annoyed him.
Right, so that was very important.
It was very important to him. I mean, he didn't like to be beaten.
Yeah.
Well, really, people say to me, who was the most that used your house, either Labour or Conservative? And I always say, well, definitely the Conservatives, because they're the most kinkiest.
Did you ever, because it's been so appropriate, did you ever have a chief whip? Was it chief?
No, never.
Never.
Only 1 or 2 MPs, that's all.
Just 1 or 2 members, as they say. Right. Anyway, here it is, the key, with our thanks to you for being with us, Cynthia Payne, the Through the Keyhole key. Thank you. And our thanks, of course, to Lord Montague. Not to mention our thanks to the motivator, the inspirer, and the, what would you like to be called, Gary Bushell. And that's all for now. Until the next time, goodbye for now.
Simply the Best next on BBC Two as Jill Dando meets the record breakers in Esther.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Hello and welcome to Through the Keyhole, the show that goes into the homes of the famous and gets the inside story. As always, we borrowed the keys to 2 fascinating homes belonging to 2 well-known personalities, and with Lloyd Grossman's help, we'll be taking a privileged peep behind closed doors. But the question is, whose? Well, to try and answer that question, we have our panel. Our first panelist comes from one of the most famous families in Britain. In fact, there can be few of us who haven't sampled his frozen fish fingers. So will you break the ice and welcome Paul Ross. Our second panelist is planning a sequel to her critically acclaimed one-woman show based on her search for a husband, Annabelle Giles. Our third panelist has just taken up golf. It's been hard going, but he says he's getting better all the time. He told me just now, at least I hit 2 good balls today. I trod on a rake. Ross King. So, let me tell you a little bit about the old game here. With the aid of these magic keys, we'll be taking a careful look inside 2 fascinating homes. And that should tell us something, maybe quite a lot, about the person or persons that live there. All our friends here are going to do is try and work out who that is. So let's join Lloyd right now at house number 1. And watch closely, because remember, the clues are there as we go through the keyhole.
Well, as soon as you come into this household, you realize that whoever lives here is really a citizen of the world, because all the decor has been gathered from every corner of the globe. I mean, let's just see what we've got on this wall here. There's an American Indian artifact, there are some carvings from Indonesia, there's a boomerang from down under, and there's a plate from Santo Domingo in the Caribbean. So this person likes to travel quite a lot. They seem to have a particular fondness for Africa. There's a terrific shield, spear and war club from South Africa here, and some other African masks. And you can also see some world music instruments hanging on the wall here. So music is important, and actually, just look at their CD collection. Wonderful rock and roll classics. So this person is very, very keen on pop music. But really, the feeling that I get in here is that physical fitness and exercise and bodily perfection is absolutely of paramount importance in this house. Otherwise, why the exercycle with the very professional-looking cycling gloves on it? This is a very nice family kitchen. It's got a little built-in dining area here, which is ideal for a busy young family. It's actually rather American, isn't it? Now look at this calendar, and you can see that this young family is very, very busy. Indeed, there's always some sort of activity going on around here. I suppose that's why they've developed a rather pragmatic approach to housekeeping. Our house, it's clean enough to be healthy and dirty enough to be happy. Noble sentiments. Indeed. Well, what do they eat? Well, they eat a lot of pasta, don't they? Now, why is that? Maybe someone in the family is Italian. More likely, we're dealing with sporty folk, because, of course, pasta's great for all that carbohydrate packing. This is a very bright and sunny room. It's got nice pale wood furniture and delicious buttery yellow walls. We could almost be in California. In fact, we're in Scotland, and here's a Scottish artifact, a quaich, which I guess is a traditional drinking cup. There's also a Scottish theme to some of the clothes worn around here. A tartan tie with a bit of distinctively Scottish wildlife on it. Now you can tell that bicycling is pretty important here. There's an energetically bicycling troll and a very state-of-the-art cycle lamp. Not many back gardens have quite such a comprehensive adventure playground as this one. Now let's look at the evidence. The exercise machine, the carbohydrate packing, the Scottish spirit. Who lives in a house like this? David, it's over to you.
Thank you very much indeed, Lloyd. And now for our home and studio audience, though not for our panel, here's whose house it is. Paul, luckily it's you to lead off.
They're obviously somewhere quite cut off wherever they are. It looks quite kind of vaguely rural. I did wonder whether, in fact, maybe they've not got electricity and they power the telly with the exercise bike in front of the telly.
That's possible.
Possible?
But
Scottish, maybe?
Pardon?
Somebody Scottish?
Scottish, yes.
Caledonian?
Caledonian.
A Scottish rock and roller? No, they're obviously saying to me out there.
Certainly no rock. Annabelle.
Now, I think this is a bloke, isn't
Yes.
it? It's a bloke, yeah. And quite a hardy bloke, because the central heating was off, actually. I don't know if they know, but this right down is not going to come on. So the central heating was off. And someone who likes to take exercise and listen to loud music while they're exercising. Yes. Is it that sort of thing? Sort of on a sort of biking, sort of, you know, sort of like heavy... Yeah. Ross? Yeah.
Yes, he's a pasta-eating Scot who cycles round the world collecting masks.
Yes?
So, there we are.
And what is his name?
Yes, now.
No. He's a champion cyclist.
Yes.
And in fact, he's broken records.
He has?
Yes, it is. Is it that one with the funny hat? You know, the helmet like this, with the funny... Do you know what I mean? That one with the...
We know what you mean, yeah.
Is it Billy Connolly?
No. Is he called? I don't want to stick my neck out here.
Oh, go on.
Is he called Chris?
No.
Oh.
No, Chris is the one who was in the Olympics and so on.
Yes.
There are two great cyclists in these
Right,
islands.
so therefore, Ross,
It's the other chap, the one
Very
who broke
good.
the record.
Well, he...
It's a name... I'm not very good on sport.
Well,
Are
he
you?
masterminded the O'Brien position because he is Graham O'Brien.
Oh.
So will you come through the keyhole, Graham O'Brien? Great to see you, man. Come and take a seat. Well, now, were they right about where you live being... Who was saying they're rather desolate, you were saying?
No, it's not. It looked a bit kind of rural and cut off, I thought.
Well, that was the garden, looked a bit rural, but the house itself is in a town of about 50,000 people.
Yeah.
It's in the west coast of
Not your
Scotland.
game, is it,
I'm
Paul?
from London. To me, that's a village.
Now, there's how much... Obviously, all that Keep Fit equipment we saw in the house, you use regularly, obviously.
Well, that actual bike was my wife's one. My one was hidden in the garage. But it's a bit more sinister than that one there.
Yeah, well, of course, you've invented bicycles as well as everything else, haven't you? Old Faithful, for instance. I mean, you've devised... Other people have bicycles that'll cost £250,000, and your first bike you made for 100 quid or something like that?
Well, there was no labour input counted in that, but it was a bit more than that. And everybody knows the story about the washing machine part, the bike. It was only a tiny part. But that got me famous with that, and I'm actually making I've launched a company which is now making bicycle handlebars. To get this, I've got this position now, this stretch position.
Now, is that the O'Brien? Which is the O'Brien position?
Well, there's two positions. The first one was like this, a downhill ski position, which was banned because it was too quick.
Why was it banned, though?
It was banned because it was seen as being too quick by the governing body. And then then they said if you changes to normal bolt-on handlebars, which I did, out in this position, and then they didn't like that either, and they've now banned it.
So now what's your position now?
It's now like this, stretched, which is exceedingly quick. In fact, who you thought I was just broke the world record on it. Chris Blorman.
Did he?
Has broken the world record in this position.
Doing this? I'm slightly lost
This
it, or that,
stretch
or that way.
Yep.
Really, my friend?
And won the world championship.
Just quickly, one after the other, do again the one that was banned
Yes.
and then the one that's allowed. Last time I missed the difference.
So did I, can't see it.
Now neither are allowed.
No.
They've now said that this second position is too quick. So that's a great endorsement for my handlebars.
It is, but it means no one can buy them.
Well, they can. Everybody's free to ride in the street with them and feel the wind in their hair.
But it's just in competitions you can't use
In
those
competition,
positions.
they're now stopping it because they think it's too quick.
Wow. But if you wanted to get from A to B quite quickly, yours are the handlebars to get.
That's the handlebars to have.
I think I've got it now.
The street-
I think I've got it now. I understand.
Street cred.
Yeah.
And what world record do you want to go for next?
I would like to get Chris Blorman's world hour record, but it's so exceedingly difficult now. He's set the mark so exceedingly high that I've got to think twice beforehand.
You have? Well, in the meantime, you've got to create a new position again. It's rather like... this conversation's bearing increasing resemblance to the Kama Sutra.
Yeah. Well, the new one will be number 65.
Number 65? That's
No, that's not good,
8
that
more
one.
than the Kama Sutra. No, it's 8 more than Heinz, isn't it? 57 variety. Well, anyway, we'd like to present you with this because we want to say thank you for sharing your home and your time with us, Graham. We've loved it. Thanks a million, Graham O'Brien. Thank you.
Okay.
And I wonder who's next.
Well, this is an ideal house for an active young family because it's got one of these marvelous, indestructible eat-in kitchens. Now, when you look around here, you can see that natural history is a big interest, especially birds. They're all interested in birds, including the children. You can also guarantee that this is a family whose letters to Father Christmas always reach him on time because they've got an annotated map of the North Pole. That map isn't the only evidence of a real fondness for the world's coldest places. Here in the study, there's a beautiful photograph of Shackleton's ship being trapped in the Antarctic ice floes, and there are seals and polar bears cavorting around the walls. Now, if you look in this bookcase, you can see that polar exploration is a real interest here. There are a lot of historical works. We've got Scott's Last Expedition, The Worst Journey in the World, Nansen's Farthest North, and so on. Indeed, exploration and discovery is a great interest to whoever lives here. In another bookcase, there are lots of books on archaeology, so this person has a very inquiring mind, is the sort of person who always wants to know the reason why. Someone as well who loves traveling. Here's the Traveler's Handbook. And someone also who's very keen on physical fitness, seems to be a bit of a runner. And look at this. This is a 19th century barber's chair. Whoever lives here really likes a gadget. Well, this is a nice big area and very light drawing room. It's got quite a good sort of pared down feeling to it. It's an ideal place to slightly rough it in great comfort. Now, as you look around here, you can see that naturalistic forms are very, very important. And even that sort of abstract picture over the fireplace is indeed a picture of a bird on a tree branch. There are a lot of rather beautiful carvings from the Inuits of Canada, mostly dealing with polar animals. We've got polar bears and seals and birds and a beautiful narwhal. So it's not surprising to find more polar art in here as well, this time in the form of a framed set of cigarette cards from the beginning of the century. Now, you can tell that this person is amused by all sorts of strange things and lovely shapes. There's a whole box here full of vaguely archaeological odds and ends. I also get the feeling that this person is really in love with landscape. They're very much an outdoors person. But there's also a scientific inclination as well. There's a magnificent sextant here. Let's look at the evidence. Santa's home. The worst journey ever. Finding your way around. Who lives in a house like this? David, it's over to you.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Lloyd.